What's up everyone, Taylor Lewis here. Check out this rad video we just dropped in our online filmmaking course, Film Creator Pro. Enjoy. How much should you charge per project? Now that, my friends, is a loaded question. And because of that, I'm going to split it into two videos. In part 1, I will give you 7 tips to help you figure out what your time is worth. And in part 2, I will share with you how to communicate with a client to get the best rate possible. All right, let's get to those tips. Tip number 1, never price your video work in packages. Now, what do I mean by packages? I mean when you list on your website or tell a client something like a basic music video will cost about $2,000 or a 30-second social ad will cost $1,000. Doing this will end up biting you in the butt, I promise. And we know this because of experience. When we first started our company, we heard that a good rate is $1,000 per finished minute of video. So that's what we did. Our first promo video was 7 minutes long, so we charged $7,000. But what ended up happening was the client would try to get the video as short as possible. So when we delivered a 5-minute edit, the client would want us to edit it down to a 2-minute video. So we'd actually have to put more work to edit it down, and then we would lose $3,000 in the process. When we finally stopped charging in packages and we went to a day rate, which I'll talk about in a second, we were able to make a lot more money. Charging video work in package deals limits the amount of money you can make per spot because it tells the client that no matter what they ask for, it will only cost them X amount of dollars. So if we were offering a social media video package for $1,000 and the client wanted a simple talking head video like this, then yeah, it would probably be worth $1,000. But if someone wants the same social media package but wants something like this, well, that is nowhere near worth it. In reality, the price difference between those two videos is close to $20,000. So if you were to sell a video package like this, you'd be potentially missing out on $19,000. That's like 19,000 tacos. I like me a good taco. Now let me show you how you can get that extra $20,000 with tip number 2, a day and half-day rate. A day rate is the billing cost for an individual service for a single day, which I'm pretty sure you could have figured out what a day rate meant on your own, but I figured I'd tell you anyway. Now, a full day rate is about 10 to 12 hours of filming. Now, a half day rate is for 4 hours or less of filming instead of 10 to 12. One thing I want to clarify here real quick is that a half day rate is the smallest amount we bill for, meaning if we only film for 1 hour, it still gets billed as a half day rate. Now, this rate will vary from person to person. Like our full day rate is usually around $1,000 per person per day. The reason I say usually is because that it can go up and down depending on how much the client has to spend, but that is a good range to stay in. The easiest way to figure out your day rate and half day rate is to think of what your experience and skill level are. I'd say for most producers, directors, and DPs that we've worked with, all charge around $1,000 per day. If you feel like you're more on the experience side, then you can charge closer to $1,000. If you're just starting out, then I would stick closer to about $500. But this number is just really up to you. Choose the price that is fair to you and your clients. Now that leads us to the third tip I want to talk about, and that's gear. Keep in mind that your day rate usually doesn't involve any gear. That's its own expense on top of what your fee is. Now you're probably asking, if I own gear, why am I charging the client for it? Well, until recent years, camera gear was super expensive, so it was just understood that no one owns gear and everything has to be rented. Now that camera gear is getting a lot cheaper, a lot of filmmakers buy their own gear, and instead of paying a rental house fee, they just charge the client their rental fee and use that to pay for their gear. This is a way to justify buying new gear if you have a bunch of shoots coming down the line and you want a new lens or camera body where you can charge that rental fee. Actually, this is how we bought most of our gear. There are occasions when a client wants a certain piece of gear that we have to rent, so that all gets added to the cost as well. To find out what you need to charge for your gear, all you need to do is simply look up what it would cost to rent your gear from a rental house and then charge that. Pretty easy. Tip number 4, hourly editing rate. If you're working on a project that involves both shooting and editing, or just editing for that matter, pricing your time is just as important when working at a computer. So you'll want to come up with a dollar amount that you want to make per hour when you edit. I've seen numbers range from about $25 to about $75 an hour for just basic Premiere Pro editing projects. This really isn't something you tell your client, it's more of something that you reference when you're trying to figure out how much an edit would cost. So let's say you charge about $50 an hour and a client comes to you and wants you to edit a 2-minute mini doc. From your experience, you know that will probably take you about 40 hours to edit, including the revision process with your client. So you would charge said client $2,000 for that edit. We charge anywhere between $50 and $100 an hour, depending on the budget. A word of caution for you though, you might run into a client that expects endless revisions. So a lot of times we'll have the contract stipulate that they get 3 revisions and any additional revisions will cost $75 an hour. This will usually help motivate them to keep the feedback concise. Tip number 5, travel and prep days. This one is pretty easy if you have a shoot that requires you to travel to the town that you'll be shooting in a day before the shoot. Then you need to charge a travel rate, which is usually your half-day rate. The same goes if you have to leave the day after you wrap. On top of that, you need to also charge for prep and wrap days. A prep day is any day before a shoot that you spend getting gear ready, scouting locations, creating a shot list, or whatever. A wrap day is any day after the shoot you spend returning gear. You need to be charging for these days. We typically charge our day rate, so $1,000. Tip number 6, expenses and crew cost. Probably one of the biggest mistakes most new filmmakers make when charging for work is that they don't charge for expenses or any additional crew that they bring on for their shoot. For many just starting out, there's a real pressure to do work for cheap, if not for free. But eventually, your value will increase, and cutting corners at your own expense won't help you in the long run. Travel can be a big one. Your travel expenses need to be charged on top of your day rate. Travel expenses are flights, hotels, car rentals, and if you're driving your own car, then you can also charge by mileage. What your client pays per mile is stipulated by the IRS. You can find the current rate at this link. That being said, if we're only driving about 10 to 20 miles, we generally don't bill for it. That $10 isn't really worth the hassle for us. When it comes to food, if you're on a shoot that doesn't come with a fully stocked craft services or catering, then you're just eating away your value every single time you take a meal on your dime. So generally, meals get charged to the production as well. You also need to think about other expenses like new hard drives to store the footage you just shot, other crew members, location fees, and things like that. Those expenses should not come out of your day rate and are billed on top of it. Which brings me to my next point. Tip number 7, creating the budget. Okay, so you figured out your day rate, travel, gear, editing rates. Now it's time to put those all together. Probably the easiest and best way to come up with the overall budget is to simply ask the client what their budget is. This is the most important question and one we ask all our clients. The reason for that is, if the client tells you what their budget is, then your work is basically done. Because you now know what you need to stay under, and if this project is even going to be worth your time. Like if the client's budget is only $2,000 for shooting and editing, and your day rate is $2K, then you know this project might not be worth your time. But it also works in your favor too. For example, when we started doing work for Amazon, we were initially going to charge about $40,000 for a video. But before telling them that, we asked them what their budget was, and they responded with $75,000. So because of that, we changed our bid to $75,000 and made an additional $55K. Sound cool? See how getting the client to tell you their budget takes all the guessing out? If the client doesn't have a number in mind, then you have to put in some work and add up the things that you think you'll need to complete what they're asking you. This can be kind of intimidating to throw out a big number to a client. So an easy way that we've found to do this is to show them a video that is similar to what they're asking and tell them how much that will cost to make. This only really works if you have a portfolio of videos that you've made and can reference. But that is an easy way to give them a ballpark. Okay, so those are 7 tips to help you figure out what you can charge per project. See you in the next video where I will share with you how to communicate with a client to get the best rate possible. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you want to learn more about filmmaking or pursue a filmmaking career, please check out our online course, Film Creator Pro. In there, we have over 5 hours of content. We'll share with you everything there is to know about filmmaking, like how to direct actors, how to write, sound hacks, lighting hacks, pretty much anything you need to know. In our opinion, it's a pretty rad course, and we would love for you to be a part of it. So please check it out at filmcreatorpro.com. And while you're there, sign up for our free 40-minute training where we share our top 10 secrets to a 6-figure income. And don't forget to do that YouTube thing to like, comment, and subscribe. We're done. I think I got it. Wrapping this thing up.